You've probably heard of the butterfly effect, right? This idea that a tiny little thing, like a butterfly flopping its wings, can cause a huge chain reaction somewhere else in the world. Well, it sounds kind of crazy, but in today's super connected global supply chain, a political fight in Washington, D.C. is that butterfly. And it triggers these massive, very real disruptions that you can feel everywhere, from a factory in Asia all the way to the shelves in your local store. Okay, so let's walk through how this all goes down. First, we're going to break down what a shutdown actually is. The spark that lights the whole fuse. Then we'll follow that initial explosion out to the ports. After that, we'll see how the dominoes start to fall inland, and we'll really get into the human cost of all this. And finally, we'll uncover some of the hidden risks that stick around long after the news moves on. Let's jump in. All right, first things first. What does it even mean when we say the government shuts down? So at its most basic level, it's a funding problem. Congress can't agree on a budget, and just like that, the money for federal agencies gets turned off. When that happens, the law says those agencies have to stop everything that isn't considered absolutely essential to protecting life and property. Now, here's where the term shutdown is kind of misleading. It's not like everyone just packs up and goes home. If you look here, yeah, about 670,000 federal workers are sent home. But look at the bigger number. Almost 750,000 people are told they're essential. These are your air traffic controllers, your customs officers, and they are legally required to show up to work, but with zero pay. So you've got this huge unpaid workforce. How does that create the first major wave in the supply chain? Well, let's head over to the nation's ports and borders. This is the crazy thing about a shutdown at our ports. You've got Customs and Border Protection officers on the job. They're physically moving boxes and inspecting cargo. But the problem is the thousands of other people, the support staff, the folks at partner agencies who actually process all the paperwork, they're at home. And that creates this epic administrative traffic jam. And what does that traffic jam look like in the real world? Well, here you go. During the last big shutdown, the time it took for a shipment to get processed at major ports jumped by as much as 20%. So the goods are right there, sitting on the dock, but they're basically trapped in bureaucratic quicksand. They can't go anywhere. You see, the supply chain is this incredibly interconnected machine, and a shutdown just takes a hammer to all those connections. If a shipment needs a sign-off from, say, the FDA for medicine or the USDA for food, sorry, it's stuck. The Federal Maritime Commission, the agency that regulates all of ocean shipping, it just closes completely. No new contracts, no new registrations. The entire administrative system for ocean freight just freezes over. Okay, so let's follow that disruption as it creeps away from the coast and starts to clog up the arteries of the country, our highways, railways, and airports. Now, the shutdown doesn't hit all parts of transportation equally. As you can see here, a lot of the highway and trucking stuff keeps running, mostly because they're funded differently. But aviation, it gets hammered. Air traffic controllers are working for free, and thousands of critical FAA inspectors are just sent home. And this isn't just about things being a little late. This actually stunts growth and safety. Trucking companies can't hire new drivers because no one's there to run the background checks. Airlines can't get their brand new airplanes or newly trained pilots certified. And all those customs delays at the seaports, yep, they start popping up at the whale crossings on the borders with Canada and Mexico too. Behind every logistical nightmare and paperwork backlog, there are people. And this is where the shutdown stops being an abstract problem and becomes something deeply personal and frankly, pretty risky. Just try to wrap your head around this number for a second. A long shutdown could mean 4.5 million missing paychecks. That's about $21 billion in wages that just vanishes. That's money that isn't paying for rent, for groceries, for gas, in communities all across America. This quote from the head of the Air Traffic Controllers Union really gets to the heart of it. Can you imagine having one of the most stressful jobs in the world, responsible for thousands of lives in the air, all while you're worrying about how you're going to pay your mortgage next month? The pressure is just immense. And this isn't just about feelings. It has real, dangerous consequences. The air traffic control system was already struggling, short about 3,500 controllers. The shutdown just pushed that stressed-out system right to the edge, causing 22 separate shortage incidents in a single day. That's one of the highest numbers ever. The immediate problems, the delays, the gridlock, are obvious. But the damage runs so much deeper. So for our last section, let's look at the hidden risks, the sort of economic aftershocks that stick around. Right, so the damage goes way beyond late packages. First, you get a data blackout. The government just stops releasing all the economic numbers that businesses rely on to make decisions. They're basically flying blind. Second, and this one's scary, it creates huge security risks. Our cybersecurity agencies are running on skeleton crews, leaving our entire digital world way more vulnerable. And third, it just injects a massive dose of uncertainty into the market, which makes everything more expensive and sends investors running for the hills. So when you boil it all down, a government shutdown isn't just some inconvenience that makes your Amazon package late. It actively attacks the three pillars of modern commerce: the ability to see what's happening, the security of our systems, and the predictability that every business on Earth needs to survive. And that really brings us to the biggest, most important question of all. The short-term problems are bad, for sure. But what's the long-term damage when the world's biggest economy keeps sending the message that the systems everyone relies on can just be switched off? What does that do to the trust that holds this whole fragile global thing together?